tell me, I think everybody wants to know, first of all, introduce yourself, Jessica. Talk to us just kind of about what markets you serve, how long you've been in the business, how many kids you have, and then we can talk a little bit about tips that we have for beginner realtors and talk just a little bit more about kind of what you're seeing in your market.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on today. I have like KJ and coffee this Friday morning.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm here in Denver. I've been in real estate. I just hit my 9th year. I run a team out of Denver, the Selling Dreams team. My husband and I also do fix and flips. We do investment properties. We pretty much anything you can think of. I've got 2 boys. My oldest is 21 and lives on his own. And then our baby, who would kill me if he heard me call him that, he's almost 13.
Oh, wow. Okay. I love that you have a little space between them, which is exciting, right?
A massive space, but yes.
Massive space. Well, that's good. Hey, listen, I think sometimes that's what it takes to get your business going, is knowing when you need to take a break between kids.
Yes.
So give us what territory do you really work in? Tell us if you have a team, do you have an assistant?
Yeah, so I'm down here in the South Denver metro area. So I serve basically Castle Rock, Highlands Ranch, Parker, Littleton, all the suburbs of the Denver metro area. I have a team. I do have an admin. I actually just hired an admin at the beginning of this year.
Wow.
I'm a slow learner. Takes me a long time to leverage. So I have an admin, and then my husband and I work together as well. And then we have showing assistants on our team.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so you have a showing assistant model of sorts. So you don't really have agents that are standalone agents working on things.
Correct.
Okay, super interesting. That's like a whole other topic for another time about all the different ways you can set up these teams, right?
Yes.
So that's amazing. So I guess, one of the biggest questions we get is agents want to know if we have tips and tricks for your first couple of years in the business. And, I'm sure you've seen a lot in your time, and I'm sure you have a lot to say for agents who want to just know the dirt, what it takes, what you think. I mean, even the conversation around how long you should plan on having reserves for if you want to directly go into the business without being in some sort of formalized structure where you have a base salary or a draw off of someone else's business.
Yeah, so I actually run a coaching company, and new agents are like my favorite people to work with. One of the things that I learned, and I didn't even know I was doing it, which I think is what made it so cool. I was posting about being able and going on this journey, and I didn't realize that anyone cared and that anybody was paying attention. And so I learned out of the gate to not be a secret agent. And I think that's one of the biggest places that people fail, is they're afraid to say, like, I'm in real estate. This is what I do. Here I am. And so my number one first tip would be, don't be a secret agent.
Yep. I agree. Make sure that people are aware that you're in the industry. I would say that's something I made a big mistake about in the beginning as well. I wasn't really vocal about it. I was just, busy doing the deals underneath, in a supporting role. And I always felt like I didn't want to be pushy. I didn't want people to think I was like expecting them to work with me. And I think it was a mistake for sure. I completely agree.
And why is that? Like, are we like embarrassed? Are we ashamed? Or do we don't want to be salesy? Like, I don't really understand it.
Yeah, I know. I don't know.
I
don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I also think that, I think there's sometimes you think of discretion, you get discretion confused with kind of being too cautious, or being too, or just being afraid to market yourself because, you don't know what people are going to think. And I do think that everyone's also afraid of judgment, because now, I mean, when I think about it, if I were to get in the industry now from the beginning, I would definitely focus on social media right from the beginning. And I think it took me years, like probably 10 years in the business before I was really thinking about social, like 8 or 9 years in the business before I would even considered using social at all for my business.
Interesting. I don't think I've ever not used it. It was like, it's just such a difference.
Exactly. It's very, very important. I think I always used to be like, well, what are you really getting out of this? I don't really know. And now it's pretty clear. There's a lot that you get out of it, and you need to really think that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So any other tips that you would say? I mean, so now you have a team, and I'm assuming, do you feel like, would you recommend teams for agents who are new? Do you think it's better to just start off on your own? What do you think is the best way to?
So I think you absolutely either need to have a mentor or join a team when you first start. I mean, either way, I think depending on what your inevitable goal is, I got into the business. I didn't even know what a team was at the time. I didn't know that that was an option. So I never knew anything any different than being a single agent. So I hired a
Right.
mentor. I mean, I paid her 50% of my first three deals, and she was worth every stinking penny because you
Yep.
don't know what you don't know. And I think we get hung up on paying people, and it's ours, ours,
Yep.
ours. They're worth their weight in gold when you have a great mentor or a great team that's helping you learn and grow.
Yeah, and 50% of a commission is a whole lot better than 100% of no commission,
Exactly.
for sure. For sure. Yeah, I think in those early years, I think you got to pay what you have to pay to be able to have someone to talk to go through each deal with, to learn from. And I'm impressed you learned so much from three deals as well. Like, I think for some people, it takes much more than three deals to learn what they need to learn to be able to go out and do this on their own.
Well, I worked with her for about a year, give or take, but we came up with a different structure after those first three deals because I was cranking through them so quick. So I was really fortunate. I was in an office with a
Right.
lot of really incredible agents, and I took advantage every single mastermind, every single class, I was at every contracts class. And I think when you want to get better and do better, you need to get education, right? And so I just took
Yeah.
advantage of every opportunity that came across my desk.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think every opportunity, and then at some point you realize what opportunities you need to start saying no to, because the fact that you're going to be too busy working on what you're working on, and you need to say no to some. But I agree, taking any opportunity that comes to you so you can learn from it, making sure you have somebody to bounce ideas off of who's senior, who's done this before, and can act as a mentor. Amazing tip. I also think that trying to maybe have real takeaways from transactions that you learn, so that you're like not going to make the same mistake twice, because I think that, that's where having someone to who's done this for a while, who can like literally talk to you about what they saw during the transaction and what else, like what else you could have done, because I think especially in those first transactions, it's really really hard to remember. I don't know, when it's over, you're like, well, I mean, I survived the deal. We got through it. What, I don't know what went wrong. I need someone else to tell me what went wrong.
I always feel like when you close a transaction, it's like that mommy amnesia. Like we forget how bad childbirth is. That's why we go and do it again. It's
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of the same thought process like with a real estate deal. Like you get through it and you're done and you close it and you keep moving. And sometimes we forget the lessons that we need to learn in each transaction for sure.
Oh, oh, yeah. I think that's why we all keep doing this job, actually. So many women, because you forget the trauma of doing the deals, right? And I think that's
Right.
really important, because that's half of sales is getting back up again, when you've been knocked, because it's just it can be such a tough
Hmm.
industry. Now, in your opinion, as far as like, so for example, you have agents that are in a showing position. Do you feel like that's a good entry level position for an agent for them to learn about the business, or do you think that you get more exposure doing other kinds of, other kinds of,
I think it really depends on like who you're helping, honestly. I mean, the people
right?
who I have helping us, like obviously they're getting training, they're getting coaching, I'm teaching them about contracts, etc. Um, I also think any way to make money in the beginning is a great way to make money in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Any
yeah.
any activity you can be doing to generate income is a way to learn. Um,
Yep.
so I think it's a great place to start getting your feet wet. You get to educate yourself on the market and start to kind of see what buyers are asking. And I think it's a good place to start. And I think it's a good place for any established agent to jump in and make some extra cash if they need it right away.
So, do you think that like, how many places do you think agents should interview with in the beginning, when they're looking where they should start?
So that's actually on my list. I think it's interesting. Agents don't realize that you're interviewing them, not the other way around.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so I think you go to as many places as you need to find a
Right.
place that's the right fit. There's so many that there's a fit out there for all of us.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I mean, in New York, when you're getting started, I would say like, sometimes there aren't that many places to interview, because people really want people with experience. You know, it's a pretty saturated market with agents that have experience. So I would say that, you know, you need to interview as many places that will interview you. You know, and then I also think that it's really, really important to use the opportunity to evaluate the structure that's going to be in place, training, if there is any training program, and then also making sure you use that as an opportunity to understand what each place is looking for and what the culture feels like in those different offices. Because I mean, yes, you should be out of the office a lot because you should be out showing and you should be out going after new business, but you can't deny what the culture is of where you work. And the more you produce, the more you're going to also need the support of that office. So I think it's super, super important. I think a lot of people are like, oh, you know, it doesn't matter what brokerage I'm with because it's about me, the individual agent. But the truth is long term, if you go to the right place in the beginning, you can stay there. You don't have to jump around.
Absolutely. I was at the same place for 7 years, and the only reason I left was my broker passed away. I loved it. And so I was
Oh
forced
yeah.
into change, but like I would have stayed there forever.
Yeah, well, listen, I was at Element for 8 years and then I was at Compass for 4 and then I came back
Hmm.
because I like where I was, you know?
Yep.
So yeah, I'm in agreement. So I would say that's great advice about how many places to look. I guess, do you think, I mean, you have a husband and wife team. Do you think that for, you know, an agent that might consider either going into business with their spouse or eventually finding a partner, do you have any thoughts about kind of evaluating whether that's the right decision?
So this is a very new situation for us. I've been a single agent. He joined me back in September. So there have been a lot of growing pains, and it's been because as a single agent, I didn't document any systems and processes and procedures because it was all up here. And now I'm trying to get him on board and the admin on board. And I don't have anything to share with anybody. So I've been going through some serious growing pains right now, having to sit down and document all of my processes and all of those things right now. So I would say develop systems early and fast and write them down, right? Like I wish I
Yep.
had done that years ago.
Yeah,
So
I
for
love that.
So for anybody thinking about it, start writing your systems and processes now, or you're going to be in my situation where you're holed up in your office for 6 to 8 hours a day, trying to write everything out in some sort of manual for everybody. And it's miserable.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I waited too long on that too. I think that, yeah, keeping track of how you do things and trying to make systems and checklists as soon as you realize as soon as you realize you're doing more than 4 transactions a year, you might as well get it into a checklist and have a plan and have systems, even if you just use it for yourself until you get somebody else that's going to be helping you. Because as soon as you're busy enough, you don't want to have to spend hours a day training someone because the fact that you never wrote anything down.
Yeah. And having that super high D personality, like I do not have the patience for the details. So I really wish that I had done this.
Oh yeah, it's brutal, right? It's so brutal.
Yeah.
And so, well, I love that idea. I love that. I think it's really, really important. And I do think that it's something that in the beginning, you're just so focused on the revenue that you're not focused on making the systems. And I think that it's very, very easy to just forget how important it is to build everything out so that you're really able to truly, you know, produce and have there be, you know, do those 100, 200 transactions a year, which, you know, I think especially for those of us building teams, that's where you want to be, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What kind of business does your husband come from? What kind of industry?
So he was actually the original real estate agent of the two of us. Him and his
Oh,
grandfather owned a real estate company here in the Denver area back in 2000. And he got out of the industry when the market crashed. And he went and became a conductor for the railroad because real estate is a natural segue to
of
being a
course.
conductor for
That's
the
totally normal.
natural.
Totally normal.
And then, with the railroad changing the way it has, we just made the decision to come back alongside me and build the business a little bit bigger than it is, and we'll go from there.
Wow. So that's pretty amazing. So in theory, he doesn't need so much training, but he knows how he wants to see this thing built out. And so you guys are doing this together of pushing to make it happen.
Yep, correct.
I love
Yep.
that. Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
it's been fun.
that's
It's
going to
been
be
it's been fun.
That is fun. Yeah, I think that's going to be really, really incredible. I can't wait to hear. I can't wait to hear more about how that all goes. So, so for you, okay, so for you, a partnership and a husband and wife team duo makes a ton of sense. I think for a lot of other
Mhm.
people, they end up doing that because the fact that like there's so much business, they don't know who to trust. Their spouse is like, hey, I'm not totally attached to what I'm doing. Let's do this. And,
Mhm.
I see that happening. But I think that working with a spouse is really tough. I work with my husband on a lot of stuff and it's not super easy. Especially if one of you in any way is the client, one of you is the vendor, clearly, or has the pressure of being the sales and they're the client. So we're working on that. But I would say
We're going through our growing pains for sure.
yeah, the growing pains are there. But that's great that if you're committed to it, I think anything's possible. I really do.
Agreed.
Especially if you know that the growth is there and you understand that like it is so important the phase that you're in right now, working on building out those systems.
I think the biggest one that I had was run your business like a business. I think real estate agents get into this and they don't keep up on accounting and taxes and business hours. Like business hours, such a wild concept in the real estate industry. You guys can
Yep.
absolutely have business hours and boundaries. So I think one of the biggest places I see real estate agents fail is through accounting. I mean, owing to back taxes and not knowing what's going on and not knowing what the revenue
Right.
is and profit and loss statements. So out of the gate, run your business like a business.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think piggybacking on business hours, using business hours, if you're going to use business hours, and that means you really have to use business hours, which means if you're going to work 8:30 to 5 or 8:30 to 6, then that means that at 8:30 a.m. you better be responding to those emails you didn't respond to that evening before, instead of letting it go for a day or two. The key is if you're going to keep business hours, you have to hold yourself accountable to those business hours. It can't be I hold business hours and then sometimes I don't hold business hours. So any other, I would say, okay, so we know where your market is and we know everybody knows where they can find you. I really appreciate your time and all of you sharing all of your tips. And you can find Jessica here on her Instagram handle. And also I'm sure that they can message you and connect with you in any other way that they can through an email and all of that.
Absolutely. You can always find me online.
Amazing. Well, thank
Thank
you
you for
so much.
having
You
me on,
heard it
KJ.
here,
Appreciate you.
of course, of course. And you heard it here, everybody. This is going to be a very sought after tape very sought after recording when it goes up, because this is one of the hottest topics that we have that agents want to know. Watch out for that. In the meantime, if you want to contact either of us for a recap, I'm sure we can remember what we talked about, but it's coming. Thank you
Have
so
a good
much.
Friday. Bye, guys.
Have a good Friday. You too. Bye.